सोता हूँ तेरे याद बिछा कर सोता हूँ
All right, good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Kim, and you are tuning in to the greatest show on the planet. I am your host, Jimmy Kim. This is the premiere episode. We have a very special guest today and longtime personal friend of mine, and his name is Mike Knox. Mike?
Hey, Jimmy, great to be here. Congratulations on your new program. Looking forward to a long-term relationship with you guys over here at the Radio Dabang. What is it? They had the dial location is 99.
Yes, 99.5 FM.
FM, yeah.
And the pronunciation for that, it's actually Radio Dabang.
Dabang, okay. Well, I'm from Texas, so it's Dabang.
Well, we like that too. Yeah, I know that could be a little bit, tricky because I had the same pronunciation mistakes there, but some of the people from the studio were trying to help me with that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a good time.
Sure, yeah. Let's go ahead and get started. So, Mike Knox, for all the listeners here, if you would please tell your life story. So, a bio about yourself. I know you've done
Way
an
back
incredible amount in your life.
Yeah, I was born in a small little child in Houston, Texas, 1958, right here in Methodist Hospital. I grew up here in the city of Houston and went to Westbury High School for a while until I got to thinking that, you know what, I knew the answers to questions that had yet to be asked, and so I left high school and as a junior, took a GED and went in the military. And I spent 4 years in the military learning that my parents may have been right about that college thing. And so, that was the best mistake I've probably ever made in my life was joining the military. I was in the United States Air Force for 4 years. During that time, I like to tell people that I served in the foreign nation of South Dakota for 4 years. That's where I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base, and my job was securing our nation's missile silos from communist rats, mice, and owls who would invade and set off the alarms, you know. But I had a really good time there and got married while I was there to my high school sweetheart here in Houston. And I figured, why should I suffer all this cold alone? So I brought her up there with me, and we spent my 4-year term in the military there. Came back as a Houston police officer. I got hired by the Houston Police Department and then started going to college. I attended the Houston Community College and got a degree from them and then transferred that over to the University of Houston downtown, all while working as a police officer. And so it took me a little extra long time to get through that college thing. I think the total amount was about 6 years total. Most people do it in 4, but
right.
I got it done in 6 because I had to work while I was doing it. But at any rate, and I was a policeman for a long time, 15 and a half years. And then I wrote a book and went on the speaking circuit as a gang and youth violence expert. And then did that for about 20 years and then came back. I was always living here, but decided to work less and charge more, and that gave me more time to hang around the house and argue with the television about what was going on at city council. And my wife finally decided that, in fact, she told me, she says, Mike, you tell people all the time that if you don't have a solution to a problem, you should just keep your mouth shut. If you do think you have a problem, a solution to a problem, then it's up to you to step up and try to get that done. So basically, put up or shut up is what she was telling me. So because I was arguing about what's going on at City Hall and this and that, so I decided to run for office, and I got elected. I'm in my second term now as a city council member for the city of Houston, and it's my second and last term, by the way. Looking back, though, I think she just wanted me to shut up the whole time. That's all she wanted me to do was just shut up. But here we are, and I'm having a good time. I spend my days trying to help people with their problems, trying to help the city navigate through some very torrential waters, if you will, literally and figuratively, with the hurricanes and all that. I've been blessed to be on council during the Super Bowl and the World Series and a lot of things that don't happen very, very often. So I feel very blessed to have been here, part of the city during this particular time. So that's my life story in a nutshell. I'm also a father and a grandfather, and my grandkids mean a lot to me. And so I spend as much time as I can. My grandson was up in the office not too long ago as council member for the day. He got to be a council member for the day. So you haven't lived till you've had a meeting run by a 7-year-old. And we actually did that. We had a couple of little light meetings, internal meetings. We had a staff meeting and some other things that he ran. It was interesting.
Very nice, yeah.
Very fun.
Anytime we can get the young people.
I think he did a better job than I did, actually.
We have some big shoes to fill, Mike, for him to be able to do that. But anytime we can get young people and adolescents involved in the civic process, I think that's always a great thing that we need to encourage more in society right now. And I personally want to thank you for your commitment and dedication in public service as a politician, in the military, and in law enforcement. I rarely come across people that have served in those 3 different arenas of life, which each in their own regard are very difficult. But you've been able to seamlessly transfer from one.
Well, what's interesting is I've never really worked for money. None of those jobs are, what you'd call make you a ton of cash. In the military, certainly not, especially as an enlisted person. In law enforcement, you get paid pretty well, but it's not going to make you rich. And of course, being a politician, everybody thinks that's going to make you rich. Well, I'm not doing it right, evidently, because I'm not any richer now than when I began. So I'm not sure that really works out. But but I've always, they say if you love what you're doing, you don't ever work a day in your life. And I've never worked a day in my life. I've always had jobs that I enjoy and that I think are important for myself and the community that I serve. And that's just been part of me since I was born, I guess.
Right. So that's why you're always happy.
Yes. Well, that and I have a philosophy that every day is a perfect day.
Right.
Some days are happier than others, but at the end, they're all perfect. They're the days that God has given you to do some work with, and you should be, blessed and grateful for it. So that keeps me sane.
Yes, totally agree. Yeah, attitude, we can totally change the trajectory of our day or weeks, months, or years by simply changing our attitude.
Yeah,
I
it's
totally
a choice.
Agree with that.
Every morning you have to get up and you have to decide today is going to be a good day. And if you don't, then you let little things get to eating on you, and pretty soon you're a miserable human being. And, I don't always agree with everybody. Occasionally I get angry at stuff, but at the end of the day, I always remember that, hey, this was a perfect day. This is the day I had, and it is what it is, and I have to be thankful for it. So, and then I get up the next morning and look myself in the mirror and say, today's going to be a good day.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Maybe that's why we got along from day one.
Yeah.
Because we're always, upbeat and have good energy flowing within us.
Yeah.
So the next topic is, I know something very difficult for you. I believe it was last year when you had lost your son, and I was there to attend the funeral. So how are you coping with that right now? And has it been...
Well, it's been tough. I mean, it's people say that time heals all wounds, but a lot of times you're left with a pretty significant scar.
Right.
So, that's where we are in our family right now. We've come to grips with it. He's not going to be around to watch his children grow, and he's going to, miss a lot. But then again, we're going to see him again. That's our family has a strong faith, and we believe we know where he's at, that he's in heaven, and that we'll see him again one of these days. And when you think about it that way, the distance between a lifetime on earth and comparison with eternity, we'll see him more in eternity than we would have seen him here on the planet. So, we look forward to that. I mean, his, son and daughter are young, and so they're a lot more resilient than us older people. His wife is, still struggles a lot, but she's getting better as time goes by. And so we are learning to live in a new reality. We have changed a little bit in that we're more willing to do things now rather than wait for tomorrow.
Right.
Because tomorrow's never guaranteed.
Right.
So, if we want to do something, like we went to the Astros game yesterday on a whim, which, by the way, was a great game, especially the last inning.
Did we win?
Oh, yeah, we won
good.
in the last inning. We were down 7-2, and yeah, that was a good game. Instead of going home after the game, we decided that we would just go over to the Marquee and enjoy because it was an afternoon game. So we went over and checked into the Marquee and enjoyed the lazy river up there and the swimming pool and spent the night and went back to that way. We avoided all the traffic. So we're doing things sort of on the spur of the moment. Our family went and bought a piece of property up in the Centerville area, a 10-acre piece of land for the kids to run wild on and just have a good time. My son and I had talked about that for years, doing something like that, and we decided, well, what the heck, we're not, tomorrow we may not be here, so let's get it done now so that they'll have it. And so we've done things like that. And, we've just kind of relaxed a little bit on what we think is important. We've reevaluated, what we think is important. Now, of course, for me, the city is always important. I do focus on my job a lot. That keeps me busy, which is good. But really, the important thing to me is my family and, how we do things together. And we're very blessed that our daughter-in-law is more of a daughter than an in-law. Her parents and I and our family get along really, really well. So we're blessed with that. So we don't have infighting, in the family. The grandkids are, equally shared between the grandparents, and that gives mom a chance to be on her own a little bit, because, being a single parent is very difficult. Right. So it's good to have a strong family support, and we do that. So that's how things have changed. It was devastating, but I'm very proud of my son. I mean, in the short time that he was here 34 years and some change.
If you can describe his profession for the listeners and viewers that aren't as familiar with what he did.
Yeah, he was a strong faith guy too, but he joined law enforcement when he was 18. He became the youngest dispatcher in Precinct 5's history as a dispatcher there until he was 21. He went to a police academy at the Houston Community College and was signed on as they told him if he passed the academy, they'd hire him as a deputy for Precinct 5 constables, and he did that. And he'd like to say that he just drove race cars, basically turned left all the time. He was assigned to the toll road, so he would go north on the toll road to the limit of their jurisdiction, turn left and go south, and then turn left and go north. It just sounds like being a race car, just driving down making the same turn all the time. But he did that for 3 years, and then he got hired by the Spring Valley Police Department for another 2 years, and then he had his 5-year law enforcement background, so he was able to join HPD, and he did that for, I think, about 9 years, something like that. And during that time, he did a lot of great work, made lots of great friends. His passion was always flying. I mean, when he was I think 11 or 12 years old, he decided he wanted to start flying airplanes. So we did that, and on his 16th birthday, we had to stop by the airport first so that he could get his solo license done on our way to the DPS office to get his driver's license, because it was important for him to be able to tell people that he could fly before he could drive. Wow. So he got on with the HPD helicopter division, and ultimately the pilot that he was with crashed the aircraft and killed him. So that was a tough blow. Hard to get that phone call in the middle of the night. I can tell you this, having been a policeman is less terrifying. I mean, being the police officer is less terrifying than being the parent of a police officer. So, you never want to get those phone calls, but we did. And, of course, Jason liked to be the first in lots of things, and I wish he had talked to me about this one because he was the first fatality of the aviation department of the Houston Police Department in its history. So he's been the only fatality that they've had in over 50 years.
My goodness.
So that tells me that it's a God thing. I can argue with the mayor of Houston all day long, and occasionally I can win one of those. But I've never won an argument with God. So we just have to let it go and hope for the best, that it's all part of his plan, and that's where we are.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that difficult story. And so next we'll move on to a entirely different subject. So Mike, since you are a Houston City Council member, we would like to, if you would like to share the current state of Houston politics right now.
I'm not sure you want me to answer that one, Jimmy.
It could be brief.
Yeah, it probably won't be. We've got some serious problems. Let me just say this. Let me start this off by saying this. I believe that every single council member on that council really is striving for the same goal, and that is to make Houston a better, stronger place than it's ever been. The difficulty that we have on council is that there's different ideologies about how we should achieve that goal. There are some of us, me included, who believe that the best thing we can do for the city of Houston is become financially sound in our budgeting. And by that I mean that our budget, that we're not spending more than we're bringing in. And there are the others on council who believe that we should do whatever we can and go into whatever debt is necessary to deal with issues that, in my view, are not city related. For example, we have a department that deals with education. Well, that's the responsibility of the school boards, the various school boards, who are elected by the people, who have their own tax base, who have their own thing going on. And I don't really think that it's a wise idea for the city of Houston to be spending taxpayer dollars on that issue when we really need to be fixing our water lines and our sewer lines and other infrastructure issues. So I'm more of a practical, what does the city need to provide to allow businesses and people to be successful? We need law enforcement, we need fire protection, we need ambulance services, we need public works, we need a lot of things. We need our roads to be in good condition. We need infrastructure to be up to par. We need to stop paying all this money to the federal government for because our sewer lines keep overflowing in wet weather. Those kinds of things, to me, are more important than a liaison between the city of Houston and various education school districts around the city. If we had a lot of money, if we had a structured budget that was sound, and we had extra money, that would be fine. But we don't. And for example, this past budgetary cycle, we had a $201 million deficit, which means we spent $201 million more than we brought in. And but for the fact that the federal government gave us money, other taxpayer dollars, to overcome that, we got $200 million from the federal government to bridge that gap. So we only had to come up with $1 million of savings, which we did by just simply writing off some positions that were not filled, to balance the budget. But structurally, we're still spending $201 million more than we're bringing in. Well, you can't survive that way. You've got to be able to restructure your budget in a way that's going to allow you to, well, one of the things we do is we project what we think we're going to make, and we budget based on that projection. Well, if you make that projection, that's great. But if you don't, then you're short. And my proposal has always been that we need to be budgeting on last year's budget. In other words, how much money did we actually bring in last year? Let's budget our operation of the city on that. And then if we have more money than that, that's great. We have extra money that we can spend on stuff like education or what have you. But that's not the way we do things. And so I voted against the budget. I was the only member of the council that voted against the mayor's budget. He was not happy about that. But as I told him, I'm not going to vote for a structurally unsound budget ever. And so that's where we are right now. So there's not really a conflict, but there's a difference of opinion on council about what the city needs to be doing to make itself better, stronger, and so forth. A lot of things I agree with the mayor on. He's been very supportive of law enforcement, and I think that's a good thing. He's been very supportive of new ways to deal with our infrastructure, which I appreciate a lot. There's a lot of things the mayor does that I do agree with. But we do have some basic challenges when we start talking about what we think is required to make the city a better city and a more attractive city for businesses. Because businesses, look, Jimmy, no one comes to Houston for the weather. No one comes here for the view. They come here to work and to raise a family and to have a life. And that's what we need to be providing. And that means businesses need to come here. They need to hire people locally, and they need to provide them with a living wage that they can be able to spend on their children and going to great schools and so on and so forth down the road. And that builds a strong, thriving city, in my view. Parks are very important. Recreation opportunities are very important. All these things are very important. But you can't get to those things until you've taken care of your core responsibilities, your infrastructure, your streets, the way you deliver water, get rid of wastewater and that kind of thing. All those are vitally important to attract businesses into Houston. So I would say that we generally get along on council, but there are occasions where you'll see us have quite some interesting debates.
Surely.
So I think we're in good shape overall, but we do have some challenges, and particularly about how we spend money, what we spend money on.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that that's a top priority for you, to be operating in a manner that is fiscally responsible. I think that should be a top priority for any level of government.
Well, I do that. Not only do I propose that, I do that in my own office.
Right.
City Council has provided a budget. Each council office is roughly close to $500,000 to operate for the year, to hire our staff with, to pay salaries, to do everything that we need to do to represent the citizens of Houston. So that's 16 council members times $500,000. That's a lot of money.
Right. So
every year, at the end of the year, I end up with about 20% of my budget that's unspent. And so the rule on that is, if I don't spend it, it goes back to the general fund unless I want to spend it on something else. So I can either give it to the mayor and let him waste it on something, or I can designate it to go to different departments within the city. So that's what I do with my money. One year I bought equipment for the fire department that they needed that wasn't in their budget. They were called emergency locator devices. That were spread out through all of the fire stations. And so now they can, in the case of a really bad fire, they can set these things up so that in the event of an emergency, they can find their way out of a building. So that was good. And I've, bought stuff for the mounted patrol and the canines, and basically any department that serves the entire city. I look for durable goods, durable things that they need that are not able to get in their regular budget, that would enhance their ability to serve the citizens of Houston. So I also, not only do I talk a good fiscal game, I also actually do that in my office. So that's a pretty rare thing. A lot of politicians talk smack and they don't deliver, but I like to think that I do
as well. Yeah, you can. You have to practice what you preach, and a lot of people can talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk.
Yeah.
That's universal, whether it's personal or business.
A lot of times it's pretty inconvenient, too.
Oh, right.
It's like my staff. I tell my staff when I first came into office, and every time I get a new member of my staff or whatever, I tell them, look, your job is to fulfill the promises that I make. So I go out in the world and make promises, and I come back and tell you, make this happen. And they do a great job of doing that. One of them's here today. Alyssa is my new communications director. She's here.
Yeah.
Say
Pleasure
hi.
to meet you, Alyssa.
Alyssa, say hi.
And thank you for
You have
coming
to say
here as well.
something out loud. We're on radio. There you go.
And another thing, I'm glad that you're very optimistic about the future of Houston, as I am too. I feel like the city is doing well, but there's so much potential for the city to grow. And we definitely want to attract the best businessmen, the best businesses, innovators in every field, and attract them to our city and to keep. Well,
the other cool thing about being on city council is I get some insight into what's coming. I had a meeting not too long ago with a gentleman who has got a great idea of turning methanol into hydrogen fuel. Hydrogen's difficult because it's basically a bomb. It's explosive. And so it's hard to transport. There's been some discussion about moving cars to hydrogen-based fuel. But the problem has always been when you load your car up full of hydrogen, and you get hit in a wreck or something, it may just blow up on you.
Right.
And that's not a good thing. So we don't want little hydrogen bombs traveling all over our streets, right? So this company has come up with a way to create methanol which is about the same risk as gasoline. It's about the same risk to transport it or to keep it or whatever as gasoline. But you can, do a conversion kit on your engine and translate that methanol into hydrogen at the point of use. So when it goes into the engine, it goes in as hydrogen, and then the end product of burning hydrogen is H2O, water. So it just returns water back out into the street instead of emissions from cars.
Very nice.
So that's an interesting concept that may be coming down the road. I don't know when, but hopefully pretty soon. So we can get off of burning carbon gas fumes and start dealing with some of that issue. The cool part about that is the infrastructure is the same as gasoline. So you could have a gas station with a pump that deals with just methanol. You load it in your car, it burns the hydrogen, and out it comes as water. So that's part of the problem with alternative fuels is that you have to create a whole new infrastructure.
Right.
Well, with this product, what I like about it is that you don't have to create a new infrastructure. You can use the existing infrastructure to make that transition, and you get the same mileage and same kind of power that you would get from gasoline from hydrogen, and it's a safer way to transport it and to keep it in your vehicle and so forth. So that's a new technology that may be coming to Houston, hopefully, in the next number of years. That creates that keeps our presence as an energy capital of the world. So they would have to build a plant here. And the other cool thing about it is that they can make methanol from solid waste. They can make it from wastewater. They can make it from anything with carbon in it. So that would be a good thing to do, I think. It would help us with our recycling issue. Currently our recycling issue is about 33% of the products that we recycle is automatically sent to the dump because it's contaminated. So the rest of it sits on the ground at a storage facility for a while until it gets to be too much, and then they have to move it to the dump anyway because there's no market for paper and plastic and stuff like that. There's just no market for it. So we're spending a lot of money. It costs us about $85 a ton right now to collect recyclable waste, and it only costs $25 a ton to put it in the dump, right? So what happens is you pay the $85 to pick up your recycled waste. It sits on the recycled storage lot until there's too much of it, and then they have to make room for the next batch of recycled materials coming in. That stuff gets delivered to the dump, an additional $25. So now you're at $110 a ton to dump your trash, where if you just dumped it in the trash or in the dump, it would be $25. Well, we need to create a market for that, and I think this methanol may be a good way to do that because the guy I was talking to said that he can make methanol out of paper, plastic, anything carbon-based. So that would be a good market for that. Recyclable materials would then make the recycling initiative actually beneficial to the citizens instead of costing us so much to make us feel good. That's a problem that I've got with government is that we do things to make people feel good, even though financially it doesn't make good sense.
Right. Yeah. Fiscal responsibility first.
Right.
And then hopefully the feel good will come after. But I've always been a big fan of sustainable energy.
Right.
So I'm actually pretty excited if that kind of gets going off the ground. That'd be interesting. But for the sake of time, Mike, I'm going to keep moving the interview along.
Great.
Because this hour is just flying by.
Well, I am a politician, so you have to rein me in once in a while.
Right. So we want your thoughts about, so we'll start with Texas politics and then the U.S. political situation right now.
Here
Since
we go.
you are a politician, I have to ask these questions to you.
Yeah. So Texas politics.
Sure, let's start with Texas.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on right now. We've got the voter ID thing going on and bail bond reform going on right now in the special session. I think both of those are important. There's a group of people who claim that the voter stuff that they're doing in Austin is the Jim Crow 2.0, right? That's completely wrong. The fact of the matter is we don't want people who are not permitted to vote voting, and we do want people who can vote to vote. We also want to make sure that that everybody's vote counts. And here's the problem. I'm going to get in trouble over this because for some reason nobody's willing, and the media is willing to actually agree that there has been voter fraud in past elections. And it doesn't. The big statement is, well, there's not enough to matter. Well, how much voter fraud is permissible? If it's a little bit, it's too much. If it's one, it's too much. So what we have to do in order to protect the validity of the vote, we have to make sure that no voter fraud occurs at all. And that way we can all have confidence that our vote counts. And so that's an important issue. And I think that's the struggle right now that we're having in Texas, is that there's a lot of people on the other side of that issue who would like to see everybody that's present, during the election process to be able to vote. But that's not what our Constitution, that's not what our state Constitution, nor is it what our federal Constitution allows. You have to be a citizen of the United States to vote. You can't be a felon and vote. There's things going on there's a reason why that stuff exists, so that we protect the interest of the citizens of the city of Houston, or the city of Houston, the state of Texas, and the United States. So I think that's a very important thing. I think that there's going to be continuing animosity and antipathy between the parties going forward. It's almost like it's become, on both sides of the issue, you've gotten to the point where, well, if you're a Democrat, you're evil, or if you're a Republican, you're just evil. You're a conspirator, or you're some kind of QAnon person or whatever. And there's the fact of the matter is there are those people in both parties, and there's a reasonable group of us in the middle who want to do the right thing for the right reason. They want to follow the Constitution of the state of Texas. They want to follow the Constitution of the United States, and they just want our elections to be free and open as we can possibly make it, but at the same time ensuring that everyone's vote is legitimate, and then therefore that vote counts, and that our confidence in our elections can be secured in that knowledge that we're doing everything we can to make sure that everyone votes count as they would like it to count. So, because the problem with voter fraud is, I vote one way, and three other people who aren't really living anymore, they're voting still. They counter my vote. So my vote gets erased. That's voter suppression.
Right.
And there has been a number of actual people prosecuted over doing things like that, or voting in the wrong area. They're not from Texas even voting. So there's one case I know particularly where a lady who used to live in Houston but moved to Louisiana, and she voted in the last Texas election. Well, you can't do that. You have to live in the county where you have to vote in the county where you live. You can't just vote anywhere you want. So there's a lot of that, not a lot of that, but there's some of it going on, and any of it is too much, and we need to make sure that happens. I think the state's doing a good job of that. On the national level, again, we have this conflict on, what does it mean to be an American? We've got the crew up, what they call themselves, the Olhan and Ocasio-Cortez, and the crew. They call themselves the crew up there. I'm not sure that they've ever read the Constitution, or they understand what it really means to be an American. And so, this discussion about how bad America is has got to stop. We are the best country in the world. We are the country that everyone strives to be. If we were so bad, why do so many people want to be here? They come here legally, and many of them come here illegally because they see America as the shining light on the hill. And we have to be proud of that we've created a government and a society that's free and open, that people can have differences of opinion supposedly without being chastised about it. Oh, this is getting more difficult nowadays. The fact of the matter is America is the best place to be on the planet, and that's why so many people want to be here. But we have a group of people in Congress and others who believe that this country was founded by a bunch of racists and a bunch of slave owners and all of that. That may well have been, but you can't judge today based on the past. Or you can't judge the past based on today's knowledge and experience. We've made incredible progress in this country, creating. The goal is never going to be reached. We're always striving to achieve the goal. In the meantime, we should celebrate our successes and come together as a group of people instead of separating out from one another along ethnic lines or along political lines or whatever. At the end of the day, we're all Americans, and we believe that, or at least I hope, we believe in free enterprise. We believe in the freedom of expression. We believe that, you have the right to be secure in your person and your property from unreasonable search and seizure. You have the freedom of speech to be able to say what's on your mind without fear of repercussion or punishment. That's becoming increasingly difficult to do. So on a national level, we've really got to come to grips with what we all want to be as Americans. And it's disturbing to me in many ways, but but I'm doing my part. I'm trying to move forward and keep
Certainly.
a positive thought in my head. And I believe that we will come around eventually to realizing that, a lot of this stuff is just being presented and hyper accentuated for the purpose of political intrigue or political power. I think when the population starts to remember that the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people, as opposed to the government exists because they want you to support them. That's a dangerous capacity. Benjamin Franklin, I believe, was quoted. I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe he was quoted one time as he was leaving the Constitutional Convention. Some lady stopped him in the street and asked him, "Mr. Franklin, what have you done?" And his response was, "Well, madam, we have given you a republic, if you can keep it." And that's the thing. We talk about democracy, and this is really big in the federal government. Democracy, democracy, democracy. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic. And the republic feature is very important. A true democracy is chaos. A true republic is chaos. What we have is a representative republic. We popularly elect elected officials who make the law. The law is something we're all supposed to follow. If we don't like the law, we elect different people to go change the law. And that's how we are able to exist for 245 years so far. And that is our salvation. That's the unique feature about the American culture that no other place on earth has. And it's what makes us special. And it has allowed us to create a society and a community that can achieve any goal that we want to achieve. We can repel despots like Hitler, and we can send people to the moon. We can solve world problems. We can, be the calming factor in a lot of places around the world. And that's something that we all should be proud of.
Yes, I agree. And I'm so happy you mentioned Benjamin Franklin. He's one of my favorite founding fathers.
He's a little quirky, but yeah, he was a good guy.
Phenomenal Renaissance man. Mm-hmm. And so as we wrap up the interview, Mike, I have two more questions. So the first one is your future career plans. Mm. So as I don't think the listeners know, but you are being termed out. Is
right.
that in next year? Or
I really don't like saying that. Termed out means like I'm going away forever, No, my second term is up, and that's the most that I'm allowed to serve on city council. So my choice is either run for mayor or run for city controller or some other public official job somewhere down the road. I don't know what the future holds, Jimmy, to be honest with you. I'm going to let God lead me in that direction if he wants me. Right now I'm a who's who in Houston. I'm an at-large council member of the fourth largest city in the United States, and that makes me a who's who. And about 10 seconds after December 31st of 2023, I'll be a who's he. And I'm okay with that too. I mean, worst case scenario is I go off into the sunset and just become Pawpaw.
Relax a little bit, take a little break.
I'll hold the political office of Pawpaw. For my grandchildren, so
but I'll be looking forward to some kind of comeback.
Well, I enjoy doing it. It's been
right.
it's in my nature to serve the public,
Truly.
And if I can find a place that somebody wants me to be in, I'll be happy to serve if called upon, and that sort of thing. So we don't know what the future holds, and as you know, 2 years. So it's 2021 now. So 2024 would be my first opportunity to run for something. In politics, 2 or 3 years is a lifetime. So who knows what the future holds? I've learned never to say never.
Yes.
But we'll just see what happens, and hopefully, as something will pop up for me. If that's the case, then I'll take advantage of that and continue to serve the public as best I can.
Yeah, I'm sure something great the opportunity will present itself when the time comes. Even for myself, I didn't know I'd be here hosting a radio show and sitting down with you.
There you go.
It just happened because the opportunity was there, and just had a few meetings, and then we're here live on Radio Dabang. And to wrap up the interview, Mike, we're going to go with top 3 life lessons for all the listeners out there for success in life. Well, best advice.
The best advice I can give you is not to take yourself too seriously. Keep a sense of humor. And do work hard, do what you need to do, but just don't, believe that you're all that. There's somebody bigger, better, somewhere out there. And just keep yourself humble. That's the first advice. Second thing is to develop strong relationships, with your family and friends, because you're going to need them. At some point, there's going to be a tough time in your life, and you're going to have that. And the third thing, I think probably just have a strong faith in whatever you believe in your faith, and lean heavily on that. There's more to life than what you see here, and you just need to believe that and have faith that there's something else for you when you're not here anymore. And that way it keeps you focused on doing the right thing for the right reasons, and it just blesses your whole lifetime. So I think those are the 3 things I would recommend to people. And don't worry about money all the time. Money's good, but it's not the end all and be all. It's more important that you're wealthy in relationships, and more importantly that you're wealthy in service to the community that you live in.
Well, Mike, once again, I want to thank you for coming here to the radio station and having this interview and giving our listeners such great life wisdom that they can use for the rest of their lives to be successful in whatever they're going to do. And it
works for me. So those 3 things work for me.
Sure. Well, I'm a firm believer a lot of those principles can work for a lot of people in many different fields as a good foundation for whatever they want to do, whether it's being a politician, whether they want to serve in the military, whether they want to serve in law enforcement, whether they want to be an entrepreneur. I feel like those are universally applicable.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Okay. And so, we're going to wrap up the interview. I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in today. And we will see you next week, Monday, 12 to 1 p.m., The Jimmy Kim Show on Radio Dabang 99.5 FM.